4 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few defense special team units. I'm going to start this week. The first one's the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills here, they've been pretty solid so far this season on defense. And they got a great matchup here in week 4 versus the Houston Texans. That in this one, they're not going to move the football well, in my opinion, especially in Buffalo, especially with David Mills starting at quarterback. And once again, I think for the third week in a row here, this Buffalo Bill defense is going to be on the attack and get double-digit fantasy points. So this week, they're probably one of the better ranked defenses they're going to have on the top 12 rankings. And this week, I think they get to Mills early and often, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them score a touchdown as well. The next team's the New Orleans Saints. Of the Saints so far, they've been playing pretty solid the first 2 out of 3 ball games, and they were a recommended pickup on the waiver wire this week. Week 1 versus Green Bay, 3 points, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. Week 2 at the Panthers, it was a down game, 26 points allowed, 2 sacks, an into, and a block kick. And Week 3 at the Patriots, 13 points allowed, 2 sacks, 3 intos, including a pick 6 and a block kick. And now here in Week 4, they versus a Giant offense that just can't get out of their own way with mistakes, bad blocking assignments, and drop passes. So right here, I think the Saints, they're at home in this one. They're going to get to Daniel Jones. They're going to cause a few turnovers. And it wouldn't surprise me once again to see them find the end zone like they did in Week 3 versus the New England Patriots. The next defense is the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans, they haven't been fantasy worthy so far in fantasy leagues. But this week here, they got a slam dunk matchup at the New York Jets, who turn the ball over a ton, give up the most fantasy points to defenses. And I think this week, Zach Wilson, he's going to be under duress. He's going to be under a lot of pressure. And I think the Tennessee Titans in this ball game get 3 or 4 sacks, 2 or 3 interceptions, and they possibly could find the end zone as well. And they're good for this week and next week, where this week at the Jets and next week at the Jacksonville Jaguars. So 2+ matchups coming up for this Titan defense. And their team I would start this week. The next defense is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Bucs, they got destroyed in Week 3 at the Los Angeles Rams. And this team now, they want to make a bounce back and a comeback ball game, especially for Tom Brady versus his former team, the New England Patriots, here in Week 4. And the Patriots, they've been a turnover machine so far the first few weeks of the season, including last week versus the New Orleans Saints, where the Saints had a big fantasy day. So right here, I think the Tampa Bay Bucks, they kick it into gear after getting embarrassed in Week 3, where that ball game wasn't even close, even though the final was 34-24. And I think they get to the rookie Mac Jones early and often. They're going to cause a few turnovers. They're going to have a lot of 3-and-outs, I think. And I think this Tampa Bay Buck unit bounces back with a big fantasy day. In the 5th and final defense, I would start this week's the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Bengals here, I'm all in on them this week versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. In the other videos, I've mentioned Burrow as a start, Joe Mixon, Evan McPherson, Jamar Chase, and now I'm going to recommend this Bengal defense, who I also recommended as a pickup on the wire this week, available in 95% of fantasy leagues coming into the week. So right here, the Bengals in Week 3, they showed up and played a great ball game at a good Pittsburgh Steelers team. 10 points allowed only, 4 sacks and 2 interceptions. And in this game, I think they're good for 2 or 3 turnovers caused on Trevor Lawrence, who's been a turnover machine so far in the early going of the season. So in this one, once again, I see the Bengals hitting double-digit fantasy points with at least 2 or 3 turnovers. So that's a few special team defenses I would start in Week 4 of the fantasy football season.